Noah.
Hello. How you doing?
Hey, I'm all right. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Can you find him?
I'm
I'm
trying to
hanging
get
in there.
good. Now to the interview here. So I'm going to start with some questions about your Tourette's growing up.
hmm
The first one I have is, when did your symptoms start showing up for you?
I believe it really started kind of with the onset of my puberty. So at the end of junior high is when it kind of begun, and then it just continued to escalate through high school.
Yeah. And so, what are some of your tics?
Oh man, when I was younger, it was just like unstoppable eye blinking. I think I wrote about that in the book.
Yeah.
And as I got older, moved into some like jaw clenching type movements. And more recently, like if I'm not taking care of my body very well and I'm training really hard, I'll do this like neck thing, and I can't stop myself from like cracking and popping my neck. Yeah, yeah. Have you ever been to like a Tourette meeting before?
Few like for like therapists, like with I'm going to Gainesville now at the Tourette Center of Excellence. I guess I'm not sure if that counts or not, but yeah.
No, I mean like with a group of a whole bunch of people that have
Oh
Tourette.
no, no,
It's a
just my
trip
brother.
because I went to I was an ambassador for a year for the Tourette Association of America,
Mhm.
and I went to a conference, and I had to talk, and a bunch of us talked who are older who have Tourette, and how we navigated it. And it's wild because it's kind of anxiety for me, because when I see other people with tics, it brings out my tics. And
Yeah.
then you even begin to like you adopt other people's tics. So for that day, it was like all of a sudden it was like a tick party for me and like everybody else and all their tics, and we kind of like call back to each other.
Oh jeez.
But instead of something that necessarily like, because for me my tics, it was a very alienating thing. It separated me
Yeah.
from my peers at school. But when you're around all the people, and even though you can't control it and it's exhausting to have like this soup of all these other ticks going on, it's something that we can, if not like laugh at, but like at least like not to be. It doesn't feel necessarily like good, but you can enjoy each other's company with it, and it's shared, so you can kind of like laugh about it, like
Yeah.
and have a smile with it. So
Yeah.
that was a very unique experience because I saw you like when I imitated my tick, like I saw you immediately did it yourself. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, you're like I gotta test it out.
um, like I know on AGT, Samuel J. Conroe, a comedian with Tourette's, he went to like Camp Twitch and Shout, and he made a joke about that. Like, oh, they're like he started doing like a shoulder roll. The person
Mhm.
threw him a head slap, and then they're pretty soon they're all on the ground, pretty much in circles, just ticking all over the place. Parents up on the hill. Oh, they're breakdancing. Um, and just you talking about
He's
that,
pretty funny.
yeah,
He's pretty funny.
just you talking about I squeak there. That's one of my ticks. But
You squeak.
so another question I have. So how has Tourette affected your life?
Well, it's affected differently depending on what stage I'm in. Obviously, when I was really young, it was super alienating, a lot of anxiety, super low self-esteem. Like what my experience was that it was such a terrible thing to not be in control of your own body,
Mm-hmm.
right? And and it hits so close in like the neurological level with the Tourette, that even like in the sphere around that, like the control I was under, being at home, or the control at school, or the control at sport, like there was just so much control, and all I wanted was freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So much of my journey in life has been trying to pursue and find my way to further and broader freedom. And as I started achieving it, my tics really started like melting away and kind of going away. And now, unless you have Tourette and you're specifically looking for it, chances are you're not going to notice all that much in me.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, I had even as a youngster, it was supposedly a mild case, even though it seemed extreme to me,
Yeah.
and I felt like I was taking a lot of medication to deal with it. and even the medication led to its own problems that I then had to undo later. You know, so uh, you know, it's always changed and it's always been different. So while it may have started off as like something very difficult and alienating, and even depressing, it became something that I learned to recognize as an asset, like something that gave me a special talent in certain situations that other people who did not have experience with Tourette, who kind of didn't have that wisdom, um, they struggled a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whereas like that heightened situation, I was a little bit more comfortable with because I knew what it's like to be on edge and have the lights on. And maybe for the other person, it's a little bit too new, so they couldn't perform as well. So I really
Yeah.
thought that like at the peak of sport for me, that my Tourette actually became a strength.
Ye-
And since then, being able to grow up and be older and be able to reflect on what Tourette was, for me to reflect on the people in my life that didn't judge me negatively, but that were compassionate and helped me, and still to this day remain my friends. That's something that's become very important for me to be mindful of, even as I interrelate to other people who may be struggling with something,
Yeah.
and to be able to meet other people with Tourette. Like you kind of mentioned, like you don't really know
Yeah.
anybody else with Tourette other than your brother. I knew nobody. As far as I knew, I was the only person in the world that
Yeah.
had Tourette. And it wasn't until I didn't get exposed to people with who had a diagnosis, at least, until I was well into my 20s, right?
Yeah.
But like, but as you get older, I also, and you'll see this too. There'll be people that you're like, that's a tick. And you try to
Yeah.
talk to them about it, and they're like, "What are you talking? I don't know what you're talking about."
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't even know. And maybe it's just like it's a mild form of it, or like a very very mild form of it. But like you can kind of like see these nuances of how it's affected you, and how it really is in a lot of different places. Um,
Yeah.
and a broad part of that path of taking it from something that was a horrible curse into a blessing, into something that allowed me to have knowledge and to give back, is to try to like theorize how Tourette is almost, it's like an energy source, right? Like it's like
Yeah.
an unstable reactor I have, but you can stabilize it, and that doesn't mean to necessarily suppress it, right? Because when I
Yeah.
was younger, I tried to suppress it. I tried to
Mm-hmm.
like choke it out and make it go away. That's
Mm-hmm.
not what you do with it. You have to just give it direction. Give the
Yeah.
direction to this energy, and it can do things for you. And so, that's been a part. That's been my Tourette journey, if I really think about it.
Yeah. And so you mentioned there, like, oh, that's a tick. I see that on TV sometimes. Like, they'll big Cubs fan. So when they show shots of like Chris Bryant in the dugout, he's always blinking excessively. I'm like, oh, that's a tick. And then you mentioned how Tourette's helps you in a way with your swimming. I know you mentioned in your book going off clonidine before big races.
Mm-hmm.
But like Tim Howard would say, like, oh, Tourette helps me with like my reactions in at goalie, and I
Mm-hmm.
really think it, like you said, it's an advantage. You just got to learn how to use it the right way, and
Exactly.
so that is one of the questions I was going to ask. So, in your book, you did mention going off clonidine before big races. What
Mm-hmm.
effect did it have on you, and how did you discover this?
Uh, I feel it. I mean, this was a pretty short period of after I left high school and went into college where I did that thing. 'Cause it only took really like 2 years of that experimentation to just, and the second time I did it, I just stayed off.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I just never went back on it, and it had less to do with the Tourette so much that I didn't want to deal with the side effects of the clonidine.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like I would
Yeah.
take that stuff and I would just be like, I just be like bonked out, and
Yeah.
I didn't want to be just like lethargic and fatigued and just like "Ugh," at a
Yeah.
really big competition, because I felt like it was the medication that was holding me back. So I was willing to take the risk and be like, you know, if I can just like be sharp, um, I don't care if the ticks come,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because like
Yeah.
I need all of me there. I can't have this pharmaceutical blanket kind of smothering me when I need to be awake.
Yeah.
So even if the tics come, they can have me
Yeah.
like, for a period of time.
Yeah, I was on clonidine for a bit there too. I got really sleepy and it negatively affected me, so I went off. But I can really relate to that. And then another thing I was wondering, how did Tourette's affect your schoolwork growing up?
Hmm. I don't. I don't think it did.
Yeah.
I don't think it did. For whatever it's. I mean, unrelated to it, I had a little bit of a foot forward academically. I felt like always growing up.
Mhm.
Even like when I entered kindergarten, I knew how to read. My mom taught me how to read,
Yeah.
and so I was always ahead of my peers in that, in reading comprehension, um, and even in mathematics, because my mom she was an accountant. So, like
Mhm.
even like as a kid, she had the little adding machine, and she's like doing taxes or whatever, and
Mhm.
it's very old fashioned, but there'd be like these keys, and there'd be like a roll of paper, and it would like print out every number. And she's like doing it. I thought it was fun. So even like an early Christmas present was like I got one of those just so I could make my own number printing things and do adding and subtracting. And so kind of this love of numbers and letters was kind of put into me at home. Um, so when I was at school, I was always a little bit ahead of my peers, so much so that even though I may have had some behavioral problems, and the Tourette only kind of like became like an intersection point for behavior and being out of control, that I was in. I mean, and you don't really have those yet at your grade level, but when you get to high school, they have advanced placement courses and honors courses, or
Yeah.
basically for the quote unquote smart kids.
Mhm.
Um, and in those environments, there's generally less distractions. So it's easier to learn, and there is kind of I want to say a relationship between like ADHD, like being unable
Yeah.
to focus or just being easily distracted, and being able to get your schoolwork done well,
Yes.
right? So if a lot of those distractions just from other people went away, then I can more easily direct
Yeah.
all this extra energy into the paper in front of me.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I don't know. Like it didn't get in the way. I would say that if anything, the Tourette helped in the testing environment because
Mhm.
I knew how to like really just like stay in that zone,
Yeah.
and apply my energy without getting burned out or fatigued for the length of an exam. Um, but I think it made a big difference in that I always academically had a foot forward, and to be in those learning spaces where there would be less distractions.
And so, what message would you like to send to people seeing this who have Tourette's and are really going through what you have in the past?
I would just say that having Tourette it's a journey, right? And it's going to change and grow as you change and grow. And while it may be something very, very difficult, um, it will become something very valuable to
Mhm.
you, and it's something that will be very useful. I don't doubt that Tourette can be your superpower, and I know it's hard being younger and thinking of the long arc of time.
Mhm.
Um, but just stay true to yourself, and lean on the people around you. Right? You know who your good people are going to be. It's going to be your family. It's going to be your friends, and they'll help you get through it, and you'll help them.
Mhm. Yeah. That's really good advice. Thank you for that. So now on to like more of your story other than Tourette's. So, growing up during your childhood, you mentioned in your book you had a really close relationship with your brothers. Jackie was your idol growing up, and the reason you got into swimming. And then Derek was, and I quote from your book, your doppelganger. So, what did that relationship with your brothers mean to you, and and how did they help you get through, um, really your journey with Tourette's, like you said, leaning on other people and throughout life?
How old's your brother?
My brother is currently 9 years old.
And you are
I'm
like
13.
11? You're 13. Okay. Oh, you're older than I thought. Um, okay, so my older brother has got 6 years on me, right?
Yeah.
So he almost felt like an adult always growing up. Like,
Mhm.
there's quite a big gap. And he was away at college before the Tourette's really kind of like kicked in.
Mhm.
So he wasn't so much a part of that. But my younger brother was, and we say doppelganger because even still, our mom will call us by each other's name because there's only like 2 years apart between us,
Yeah.
right? So we shared a room growing up, and we spent a lot of time together at home. And my younger brother, it's he's had his own like challenges to deal with, and to watch him grow up into it now. I don't think of him as my younger brother anymore. He's just like my brother. It's like he took a different path, and it
Mhm.
had nothing to do with age. And we kind of like went like this, and then we came back together.
Yeah.
So I talked to him the other day. He's got a young son and now a young daughter, and his son's the same age as my daughter, and they're like best friends. They get along famously. So family is really important, especially as you start working your way into the next generation type stuff. Um, I didn't really have cousins that were close to me
Mhm.
growing up, just because my parents were so far away from where they originally started out. Um, but I make sure, because I travel a lot. I have a lot of airline miles. Really, before Corona, flying around was something that was very common for me.
Mhm.
So I go out of my way to make sure I grab my family and go and meet up with my brother and his kids, and so
Yeah.
they can share experiences together. Uh, and I get to spend time with my brother,
Yeah.
right? Like, so even though we may be physically distant a lot of the time, we still talk. And we even have a Minecraft server that we that we have together that we build stuff on. So yeah, your relationship with your brother, it's a good one, right? So take care of him, or ignore him. Just but make sure that you're always at least checking in from time to time.
Yeah. And so, in your book, you talked about your mental health struggles a lot in college. How did you work through this, and what message would you send to people going through this as well? Yeah.
Yeah, it's well, in college, I was having a bit of an existential crisis.
Mhm.
A combination of all the things that I was learning, mashed up with my own freedom, all this freedom that I craved. Now I had it,
Yeah.
but freedom can be quite corrosive on you if you're not knowledgeable in how to use it. So it was just a part of that learning frame of coming to grips with your identity, who you want to be now that you're not being controlled by your parents, and now that there's a wider world that you're constantly interacting with. Mental health. I mean, mental health is kind of like buzzwords now,
Mhm.
and it's always kind of been there as something that you're always coming of age in some manner, right? If you're
Yeah.
a teenager, you're coming of age, and like there's challenges to being a teenager, and everybody's is going to be unique, but there's a pattern to them that everybody's going to share. Of course, you don't really realize that you're sharing that with everybody until after it's done, and you
Yeah.
can talk to each other about it. So you know, just if you can just have faith in that, and knowing that whatever it is that you or anybody that's listening to this, whatever it is that they're going through, if they feel like they're alone, in a way they are, but they're also not. And if you need proof of this, just think back to 4 years earlier when you may have been having some struggles, and how differently they seem in scope now, and how you like understand. Like you look at your brother, he's 9,
Yeah.
right, and you're 13, and it's like you understand what it means to be 9, and what
Yeah.
are the things that that make him upset or can make him sad. And they don't seem as serious to you now, right? And you can actually go and talk to him and actually help him with that.
Yeah.
Know that whatever it is that you got now, that maybe a future you, your future you, can go back and talk to yourself and let you know it's going to be fine. The words are there, the knowledge is there to get you to keep going forward, right?
Yeah.
That was like the main thing I felt. When I was going through my darkest period, I want to say like in my 20s, was that there was a period where I didn't feel like I knew how to move forward. I was just like stuck. I thought I was stuck, but I actually wasn't. I was still searching. I was looking for it. I may have felt trapped in the darkness and I couldn't move, but I was still looking around for light, and I found that in other people. There's always been mentors, father figures, mother figures, people that found me or I found them, and the care was there. And unfortunately, any monsters that may have been out there, and there are some monsters in the world, like they couldn't keep me under their grip for long, before I was able to free myself, and to find those good people and to just learn from them. Right?
Yeah.
There's nothing better for moving forward in life than to just continue to learn. But you got to find the right channels for learning, the right people, the right lessons, the right teachers. And part of that search, in hindsight, that's part of the best part, right?
Yeah.
I have a fixation on people. Like, people have been so important for me, the people in my life, because they've helped me grow. More valuable than money.